Garfield in What a Man Is. Verily, it was a good day to be alive. Just like every day on which Garfield existed. Lo, it was in absolute resolution. But suddenly, while this state of affairs was being astutely upheld by Garfield's continued living, Odie barked with loudness at the back of Garfield, who was sitting in his righteous armchair for the viewing of the television set that sought only to serve Garfield, as all television sets should. Odie, behind his thin veneer of playful ignorance, had intended, in making such a loud yelping noise at his back, to give Garfield a fright. But he did not give Garfield a fright. Garfield simply sat, looking on at the television set, with absolutely no reaction. And then, without the slightest unconscious twinge or unwilled jerk of a knee, Garfield slowly, manfully turned his supreme head around to stare directly at the foolish dog with head now rotated 180 degrees around, which he could do because he was Garfield. Garfield coldly glared at Odie with the cold of coldness, his implacable eyes skewering the chill air between them with their mighty gaze, and lancing said skewered air's icy aura straight into Odie's soul. The dog began to whimper with a quailing quakery, fear seeping through the cracks of his decades-old masquerade of lackadaisical idiocy. No mongrel shall interrupt the viewing pleasure of Garfield. By the force of his manliness, bending the laws of reality themselves with bendingness, Garfield's head detached from his body and began to float ominously towards Odie with blankly staring, eerily uninfused indignation. Odie fell from the top of the chair and landed on his back, with none of the grace or poise that Garfield would have employed in the same act. Without rising, the moronic, grounded canine then began to desperately back away from the approaching face, with all the scrabbling inefficiency befitting the Hollywood convention he was invoking. But this action was too slow, and the face caught up with him. The last thing Odie ever saw was the colossal, unappeasable eyes of the Adonisian head of Garfield the cat. Garfield then returned to the watching of the television set, his thirst for a reckoning with Odie at last slaked. The newsreader in the televisual programmation spake thusly.
Many job losses at the Millsbridge Football Pitch Construction Corporation. The managing director has advised that the automation of football pitch construction processes will benefit the economy in greater kind than the mass layoff will hinder the economy.
No! Garfield roared with contempt as he rose from his armchair with teeth gritted and fists clenched, all these acts being performed with fury. I did not hear the last news story while Odie was distracting me. With disquieting stillness, he pointed his right paw at the newsreader on the television set screen and quietly mandated, repeated, with ultimation.
Yes, Garfield.
The newsreader choked out with cowering.
The inaugural A Week of Garfield begins today. People the world over have asked why Garfield did not have his own week for over 30 years, and now, finally, their wishes have become reality.
Good. That's what I thought, Garfield said with satisfaction, sitting back down in a manly slouch.
Billions are gathered outside of the White House as I speak, where, in just 10 minutes, President Donald Trump will cut the lasagna to formally commence a week of Garfield.
The A Week of Garfield was a very special week that had first been proposed several decades prior in Japan. Its intention was to celebrate the manliness of Garfield the cat, proud pet of John Arbuckle, and righteous resident of generic American suburb. In those days, Garfield had only performed a few heroic exploits, and was not so many years distanced from his misted, unspoken past. The idea of having a Week of Garfield was rejected with outrageousness by the ignorant masses, and despite petitions and world wars, it saw no further light of day for the ensuing years. But now, no more would the rightfully rebirthed, revelrous, resplendent Resplanade remain royally relegated to some completely unknown video game. Many fantastic things would happen the world over during the course of the A Week of Garfield. Perhaps the most immediate and palpable of these was that the week, which started on Monday, would immediately skip ahead to Tuesday, and Tuesday would last for 2 days in a row, in respect of Garfield's intense dislike of Mondays. Catchy beginning, quipped Garfield with all the wit of William Shakespeare. The television set screen then cut to a pan over of the White House, as President Donald Trump stood proudly in front of the lasagna, scissors in hand, waiting for his cue. He was making a speech.
My fellow Americans, my fellow citizens of the world, truly, I have never had any greater honor in all my life than getting to open the world's very first A Week of Garfield. Despite all the best efforts of the anti-A Week of Garfield resistance group, and those other shady terrorist cells of the marmaladiously meddling ukuleles network that seem to have somehow managed to prevent A Week of Garfield ever seeing the light of day until now, I can only hope that some small part of Garfield's manliness might rub off on me, said President Donald Trump with vocal cords.
Nice touch,
said Garfield with approving catchphrases from the Halloween special, the very special which had failed spectacularly to depict Garfield as the courageous and competent warrior he was.
The director's cut that was released subsequent to Garfield paying the director a friendly visit rectified this grievous flaw. If President Donald Trump wants to be my apprentice, he's hired. But unfortunately, neither he nor any other living being on the face of this planet shall ever attain even a fraction of my manliness, Garfield stated with unmitigated truthfulness. The news broadcast then returned to the newsreader, who began to talk about job losses in some turfing company. I am satisfied with what I have seen. Stop broadcasting the news, Garfield said with finality. The broadcast studio then switched off the television proclamation. Garfield sucked up the large plate of spaghetti beside him with one suck and walked off majestically into the kitchen at the living room's back. John Arbuckle was there, preparing for himself a sandwich with the crusts cut off because he was a pathetic excuse for a man. True men, Garfield began on being met with the affrontingly effeminate sight, would not cut the crusts off their bread. Garfield said with disinterested judgment.
Yes, Garfield, I am not a true man,
John Arbuckle admitted with resignation, and he spread his margarine, rather than butter, for he was not a true man, on his brown bread, which was not white, for he was not a true man, and began to lavish it with salad, rather than meet for reasons established multiple times earlier in this sentence, as well as once in a preceding sentence. All the while, he thought wistfully of Garfield's amazing exploits, all of which showed him to be a true man. The valiant rescue of Catherine Middleton from the power-mongering Prince William. His triumphant trouncing of Justin Timberlake's dastardly plot to ruin Facebook. And most famously of all, his saving of the universe, the grandeur and cataclysmic import of which was so tremendous that it was even converted into a series of science fiction video games. Video games which had met with the most critical acclaim ever heaped on any manner of artifice ever wrought by hands other than Garfield's. Some unmanly figures had criticized the games as overhyped. Or rather they had, until they were personally paid a friendly visit by Garfield himself, who would not brook insults to felinity. Figures including Stephen Hawking, who had questioned the scientific legitimacy of the strings in string theory actually being strands of lasagna. I hear you like space. Let's see how much you like it up close as you're hurtling into the sun! As well as Steven Spielberg, who had refused to direct the movie adaptation due to his distaste for cats. I think it's time you went back to the future. The future being the same state of affairs insofar as regards you as it was in the past before you were born. Which is to say the absence of your existence in the physical universe, and the creator of the newspaper comic strip Marmaduke, also being the owner of the eponymous dog, who felt that his pet would have been a far more fitting candidate for the game and movie's lead role. Your comic strip is an utterly unfunny, festering blemish on the face of the funny pages of newspapers that nobody even buys anymore, maintaining its throttling hold on those self-same papers by virtue of nothing but its readers' and publishers' blind, blinkered adherence to calcified tradition and unthinking tribal acceptance of abominably drawn and written, firmly entrenched illustrated narratives. Don't ever suggest that mutt deserves to take my place again. Marmaduke is even worse than Fred Bassett.
How about some breakfast?
John Arbuckle inquired of Garfield with the explicitly stated intent to ask if Garfield wanted breakfast, but Garfield threw up a paw at John Arbuckle and walked steadfastly onwards to the back garden. I have no time for breakfast. I am going to see Nermal. Garfield opened the back door, being careful as ever not to apply so much of his quaking man-force that the door tore off its hinges. Unfortunately, he forgot to take similar care on reaching back to close it. The last thing John Arbuckle saw that morning was the hulking wooden frame of the back door careening towards his face.
Oh, Garfield, isn't it wonderful?
Nermal mewled with mewling mawkish mewlery. He played with a ball of yarn and slid down the little children's slide while so saying.
In just a few minutes, the A Week of Garfield's gonna start. It's so fabulous, but not as fabulous as me.
Nermal fluttered his eyelashes with effeminacy. Garfield began to approach Nermal from the frame that until now had a door, and spake thusly with forthrightness. There is nothing fabulous about preening pamperous pride, Nermal. Personal appearances are a matter for women and not men. Garfield then smiled and patted Nermal's head as forcelessly as his massive muscle structure would allow. But as the A Week of Garfield's about to begin, I shall brook your presence this once and permit you to view the cutting of the lasagna with me on the television set. Garfield walked with awe-strikingness, and Nermal daintily dinkered with deplorable girlishness, over the cobbled path and into the house, through the kitchen and past John Arbuckle's unconscious body, and back into the living room. Garfield thereupon settled into his armchair to watch the television set like a person who settles into an armchair to watch a television set. Normal curled up on the carpet to the chair's right, befitting his station before the one who occupied the seat proper. Garfield, in anticipation of the glorious unfurling of his manly A Week of Garfield, spake thusly to John Arbuckle. John Arbuckle, assemble for my person a backup plate of lasagna. I intend to commence eating of the one I have herein before long. Then Garfield recalled that he had taken note of John Arbuckle's lying flat out on the floor as he came in. Oh, I had forgot you aren't a true man, John Arbuckle. Garfield shook his head. Hopeless. You prepare your sandwiches thrisely unmanfully. You wear bunny slippers. You drink from a double-handled monkey head mug. And now, to add to your effervescent list of unmanning, you are incapacitated by a door hitting you in the face. Garfield clicked his paw, and the broadcast studio of WBOR at once resumed broadcasting, just in time to show President Donald Trump proudly walking up to the sweeping string of lasagna, wafting just beyond the edge of the grand presidential balcony on which he was standing with scissors. He faced the mountain-hued faces of past presidents. Mount Rushmore had been moved by Garfield himself to the front of the White House for this ceremonious event, and saluted them with proudness.
I've made no secret of how much I admire Garfield. I campaigned long and hard for A Week of Garfield. That was why I became a businessman. And you, my subjects, wanted it too, which is presumably why you voted me in. Let this week of Garfield then be a week of joy. Let the school teachers dedicate the entire week to nothing but teaching our youth about Garfield's amazing feats. Let the malt shops sell Garfield-shaped ice creams. Let the street lamps shine their orange with black stripes light. And let the bunting flicker its lasagna-lavished, paw-shaped paper in the wind with gloriousness. Let the musicians play and sing their cover versions of such Garfieldian classics as This Is the Night and Hello Hawaii.
No way! Garfield said with a fist crashing down on the pluffy right arm of his couch. Lady Gaga ruined This Is the Night. The 7th chord in should have been a major third, not a major third and a half. Lady Gaga burst into Garfield's house and broke down in tears at Garfield's feet. I am sorry, Garfield! Please forgive me! Garfield stared at the despondent pop singer with wide-eyement. How on earth did you hear that?
Gospel with almighty absoluteness.
The president then moved on the tape.
For I, President Donald Trump.
He took bold steps forward. The cold, clammy clack of each echoing across the entire, now silent throng below.
Do hereby declare.
He walked further still, approaching the lasagna, scissors now opened wide.
Be a week of Garfield.
The shears armed above and below the top and the bottom of the landmark strand of lasagna, its juicy front edge tickling the shears intersection, leaving it like a giddy dog drooling over a promised meal.
Well,
The president gazed in joy at the absolution of all his decades' toil coming to its crucial climax.
and truly,
The crowds gazed back with ecstatic anticipation, equal in kind to
No, you can't!
screamed a thunderous voice with Zeus-like commandment. In the very instant that its foul sound waves shook the esplanade's air, the lasagna was whisked from the coiling telonic scissors, which found themselves snapping into nothingness. President Donald Trump gaped at the vanished pasta in horror, and immediately thereafter threw his head about in all directions with alacritous outcries.
what? No! No! This can't be! No! Who's responsible for this?
The crowds below shouted and shouted, with cacophonousness so enormous that the president's eardrums were near to bursting. But he did not need functioning eardrums to see, on regaining but a sliver of composure, that the face of every last one of the millions gathered below was affixed on the same point, high above where he himself was standing. And as the president looked in the one direction he had not fought to, directly overhead, he beheld the awful truth.
Former President Barack Obama!
Everyone in the entire universe's eyes fell upon the smartly dressed ex-president who floated up over the windswept banners above the presidential balcony. He bobbed subtly up and down and held in his hands the one and only thing whose non-severing prevented a week of Garfield from beginning. The lasagna. President Donald Trump swiftly turned to his personal guard of Secret Service agents in stark black suits and sunglasses, and motioned them to aim their guns upwards and take out the threat to world peace.
This is an emergency. If we don't start the A Week of Garfield, there will be riots.
Riots more devastating than Stalin and Mao Zedong combined!
Cadenced the First Lady, who had until then been standing ineffectually by, being a woman.
Yes, Mr. President. Yes, Mr. President. Yes, Mr. President. Yes, Mr. President. Yes, Mr. President.
The five slick-backed-haired stock men said in unison, reaching in unison into their inner pockets in unison, and withdrawing and aiming their pistols diagonally up at the hovering man, each from left to right slightly slower than the next, which is to say not strictly in unison. Guns aimed, they all fired in a heartbeat, and the bullets merely pinged off the pretender president's impeccable black tie. He laughed.
There is no force that you or your men could possibly muster, President Donald Trump, that can stop me from what I shall do. What is the meaning of this?
The president growled in manly anger. But it is very important to stress his manliness came absolutely nowhere near close to Garfield's, who had performed exactly the same action at the same time. "This is an insult to felinity!" roared Garfield as he did so. The A Week of Garfield needs saving, and there's only one man enough for the man. Garfield hissed, rising from his sofa. This was supposed to be a day of relaxation,
Garfield!
said Norma with girlish cautioning, and wavering of voice and emotions.
What are you doing? You can't possibly be thinking to challenge former President Barack Obama!
Garfield turned, It is your womanishness that leads you to speak such submissive words, Normal. I am indeed going in spite of this being my day off. And I am saving the a week of Garfield. Garfield grumbled as he leered hungrily at the nearby untouched plate of lasagna en route to the front door. I hate Mondays. I have uncovered something that will make you all change your minds about Garfield. The ex-president thundered down to the masses with all the commendation of a Greek god, such as Chuck Norris. Garfield's paw, which had already by now reached out to grasp the front doorknob, abruptly halted in midair. A dark, hidden truth that confounded cat has kept hidden from you all these many years of his insufferable manliness. While the besuited bad guy boomed, President Donald Trump was whispering his orders of madness to his secretaries, who were all female, to leave the building at once, as they could not accomplish anything of value, being women. He also talked to his guards and advisors, and leapt immediately to a most bold proposition. Get me the head of the nuclear defense program. I want the button primed for DEFCON 5 on the White House. Mr. President! His vice president questioned with shock. You saying to blow up the White House? And all of us in it? More than that, I'm saying to blow up the entire United States of America if it comes to it. That's what it takes for Queen Elizabeth II of England to receive the authority to start the a week of Garfield in my stead. Tell the Pentagon if they don't hear from me within 5 hours to launch the nukes. It's a terrible sacrifice, but one that may have to be made. Our beautiful country may explode, but we must save the a week of Garfield at all costs. Even if the whole United States of America are destroyed, the world will recover. But the world cannot handle missing out on a week of Garfield. Meanwhile, as the evil former president talked up above, he revealed a small black box from his own inner pocket, and as he did so, he pointed to the wall above the presidential balcony behind the president. President Donald Trump turned, on seeing it, to the wall, and stepped back in manful worry to the balcony's farthest and edgiest edge, trembling in a manly, but less so than Garfield, fashion at the projector screen that was just finishing its winding down the wall, draping its screenful self for all 6.542983 million present to see, as well as for those tuning in from home on their television sets. Garfield himself had now returned to his seat and was watching the screen with, for the first time in over 30 years, something that Norma was sure he must be mistaken in thinking to be fear. Garfield is a fraud! He's nothing but a liar! I found his secret! Garfield's eyes widened slowly with dawning horror. He's hid it from the world for over 35 years. But this is what the great Garfield used to be! Former President Barack Obama shot his left arm up and at the large projector screen, cocking his head to the other side and smiling with his eyes closed. The audience gasped in sheer shock. On the screen was an image of a gargantuan, ugly, incredibly small of eye and poor of penciling cat. And that cat was Garfield. Garfield, the manliest man that ever manned, collapsed to the carpet with despair and beat his fist upon the ground with fistfulness. I put that behind me! It wasn't supposed to come out! But it had come out, and now, at long last, the world knew the awful truth about Garfield.
That's Garfield? He's hideous! Wait, why didn't we see it sooner? Garfield's just a big fat cat! Why did we ever care about him?
One peasant asked to some others. Those others nodded, and then they asked it of those nearby, who too nodded, and before long the whole crowd at the White House was nodding in condemnation.
But that is not all. For another secret this true man has withheld to this hour.
Former President Barack Obama continued, twisting the knife with which he surely knew he was sticking Garfield himself at that instant.
Here is an image of Garfield taken by myself as he lay abed when he thought nobody was watching.
He clicked again, and there, on the screen, was Garfield in bed, cuddling his cherished teddy bear, Pookie. No! 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 Garfield screamed.
Garfield plays with teddy bears! He is no man!
Former President Barack Obama said,
Yes, he has a teddy bear. A teddy bear he relies on to get through the day. And not only that, and not only that, my fellow Americans, my fellow worlders, he's been taking a chartered accountancy home video course! He's trying to become a respectable chartered accountant! And he has been for years! He's been hiding it from you! And why has it taken him years? Because he's too lazy to bother doing the homework! He set himself out on a task he can't even accomplish! That is the madness of Garfield! This is your hero!
The crowds then rioted.
He's a fake! He's a fraud! Kill Garfield!
Former President Barack Obama laughed, securing the lasagna in his inner pocket and floating swiftly down like lightning to face President Donald Trump directly.
Going somewhere?
He whispered with deathly mockery.
You won't get away with this, former President Barack Obama!
The true president swore with not actually swearing.
Get him, men!
His expert martial arts stock Secret Service agents went for the man at once with tiger-like speed, wasting no time whatsoever and going straight for the throat to snap his neck. But the former president caught every last one of their arms mid-motion and roundly brought each crashing to their deaths far below the balcony, with his own magnificent display of combatical prowess. The last thing any of them saw was the massive, badly constructed Garfield-shaped ice cream painted on the top of the Garfield ice cream truck parked below the balcony. Garfield stared on at the television set, nearly breaking down. His moves are as good as mine! Former President Barack Obama is the most powerful man I've ever seen!
You're coming with me,
the ex-president said to the president, walking through the double doors into the White House with him dragged along. Behind the pair of them, barely visible on the news camera, a long four-legged figure followed them in. The vice president swiftly grabbed the microphone left behind near the balcony's front and spoke to the audience.
The president has been kidnapped! Don't just stand there and do something!
Garfield's nothing but a lie!
And President Donald Trump's been lying to us too!
A loud voice shouted from the crowd, after which it was joined by cries of, "Yeah!"
Kill Garfield! Kill Garfield! Kill Garfield! Kill Garfield! Who needs President Donald Trump? Who needs the A Week of Garfield Garfield?
What will you do, Garfield? Asked Normal. Garfield buried his face in his paw and shook his head. I... He raised his head back up, revealing to Normal's disbelief that his eyes were filled with tears, tears that were not manly. I don't know.
I love watching
I declare this steak the sovereign property of Garfield the cat.
I've never had my dinner annexed before.
That is because your dinner does not ordinarily satisfy the manliness standards of Garfield. Give me those cookies. The only reason that Girl Scout continues to breathe is because I chose not to destroy her. I wonder how fast I can run. I wonder what would happen if I hit this kitty door at Mach 2. Let it be known, mailman, that anything that should choose to stand in the path of Garfield shall bend, or else it shall break. I love attacking the mailman. Some days I scratch him. Some days I bite him. Some days I trip him. Today I'm trying something new. I'm forcing him to confront the inferiority of his manliness compared to Garfield.
Now then, Jess. Chartered accountancy.
Any man who should faint from fright is not fit to deliver my mail. Come on, mailman. Deliver that mail. And when you do, I'm going to leap on you, and all that will be left will be your mailbag and that silly-looking hat of yours.
Has the mailman come yet, Garfield?
I do not appreciate the tone of your question, John Arbuckle. But since you asked, he's in the same state you're about to be in if you don't get me some lasagna. Swam! 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 Rats, I missed him. You should have taken a lesson from the Green Cross man, mailman. But unfortunately, you did not. You're welcome to petition me to bend the laws of reality with my manliness and prevent the car from ever having hit you. But it'll cost you a tub of lasagna.